It's 2025. We are 1 year into the old world. It's been a great year, and I'm looking forwards to seeing what we get over the next one. So, with that in mind, I wanted to make some predictions for what I'm expecting to see for Old World the game, and also for myself for the channel. And here are my 25 predictions for what I'm expecting from 2025. Number one, I'm going to set myself up with a gimme. I'm still going to be playing in 2026. This is a super easy one for me. I've had a great time with Old World. I've enjoyed playing it more than I've enjoyed playing Warhammer for most of the last 4 or 5 years. Obviously, I came from playing 40k, which I enjoyed to start off with, but went downhill fairly quickly. I didn't like the direction the game's gone in. Old World's fantastic. There's loads of granularity with the list building, loads of options, and despite it having restrictions, I think that makes it a more fun game because you have to build around restrictions instead of just taking the most efficient unit and taking 6 of one thing that's going to win you the game. So my prediction is that I'm going to be playing all the way through 2025, and when I come back and review this video in 2026, I'll still be loving Prediction number 2. I think we're going to get a matched play handbook, sort of like a general's handbook from Age of Sigmar, or a chapter approved from Warhammer 40,000, something along those lines. I've been expecting this for months. I've heard rumours flying around about it. I thought we were going to get it before LGT back in September. Then I thought we'd get it before the end of the year. And now I'm going to say, put my flag in the ground, we're going to get it in Q1 of 2025. That means we're going to get it before April. So my prediction is we're going to get a general's handbook before April. If it's after that, doesn't count. Prediction number 3. So, inside the match play handbook, which I'm confident we're going to get, no matter when it comes, I think we're going to get objective markers for some of the missions. That's my prediction, that we will have objective marker scoring. I don't mean that if you stand near a building, you'll get some scores. I think Games Workshop are going to do what they've done with the rest of their games and say, if you were holding an objective at, let's say, the start of your turn, you get X number of victory points. That's my expectation. Prediction number 4, contrary to what we've been getting in other games, I don't think we're going to get a points rebalance with the match play handbook. Maybe just the first one. Maybe it's something we get going forward. But I just can't see that being the way that they rebalance the game, which I think is a little bit of a shame, if I'm right. Using, for example, Pegasus Knights as an example, you could change their points instead of limiting how many they are or changing the stats on them. If they were just set, let's say, 20% more expensive, just pulling a number out of thin air, you could have less stuff in the army if you wanted to spam them, or because of the way that it works with you've got to fill up your core allocation and you've got limited points for characters, you end up being able to fit less of them in your list. Maybe the Royal Pegasus could go up in points as well because it's a super efficient mount choice that is realistically better than most of the mounts in terms of what it provides for the characters riding it with the 360 line of sight. But my prediction is that we won't see a points rebalance for Old World into 2025. Not 1 point, so we'll see if I'm right on that one. Speaking of points, I think we're going to see the Warhammer World Throne of Skull rules that were floating around a month or so ago. I think they're going to become standard in the game. And by that, I mean the 25% cap on your character's points and 1 level 4 character, or 1 level 4 caster, I should say, at 2,000 points. Why do I think that's going to be the change? Well, we've seen those rules come in for Throne of Skulls. You're limited in your list building, so you're only able to take 500-point characters at 2,000 points, which is the standard game most people play. And you're only allowed to take 1 level 4, but that's not in the rulings for the matched play event that they've got at Warhammer World at the back end of April. I will be aiming to get to that one and bring you some content around it, and hopefully I will see some of you there as well. But by the by, given that it's in the Throne of Skulls pack and it's not in the match play pack, I think between now and the end of April, they will bring that rule into the core game so that everyone is playing with those rules and limitations. Finally, on the balance front, I am expecting to see TMP, Travel Mystical Pathways, nerfed to be, you can only travel to be wholly within 12 inches of where you started. I think this spell is very good. I think it's probably too good, but mostly it's not it lets people play not Warhammer fantasy. People are taking big bricks of poison shooting, which is not necessarily a problem in itself if they can get run down. But right now, they're just using the flexibility of TMP to teleport them around. I think this is something that gets changed because it's something that feels not Warhammer Fantasy. And the way I think it's going to get changed is you have to be wholly within where you started from. So if you draw a circle around the unit, you can then pick up the unit and put it within 12 inches of where it was. You still get to change your facing, but I think that's the cleanest way to change it. Okay, balance changes aside, let's move on to the arcane journals, the armies of infamy. High Elves are expected to be coming after Empire. I think it's pretty much confirmed, if not officially confirmed. And we've seen Corhill, the White Lion model, be leaked in the new official packaging. So I'm going to give myself a layup, and I'm going to say there's going to be a White Lion detachment with Corhill coming in as the special character that is linked to that detachment. Following on from the White Lion detachment, this is not one that I'm super confident on. This is a little bit of wish listing. But my prediction, number 9, is that we're going to see, or number 8, I should say, is that we're going to see White Lion Cavalry as sort of like a Cold War Knight analog. Obviously, they won't be as tough. They'll be probably T4, I would assume, if they do come in. And they would have a 3-up save against shooting between heavy armor, barding, and then the White Lion cloaks. Only a 4-up save in combat, I guess, but they've got great weapons, so they hit pretty hard. Do I think this is going to happen? No. Do I want this to happen? Yes, please. Oh, I'd love to see it. So that's prediction. They're going to be White Lion Cavalry coming in the next couple of months. Prediction number 9. I'm not confident on the White Lion Cavalry, so I do still think that there's going to be a cavalry-focused detachment for High Elves. I'm going to predict that there will be a Dragon Prince detachment. The reason for that is obviously most arcane journals we've seen have got some sort of cavalry detachment. Bretonnia, they're a gimme. They're all, cavalry-focused. Tomb Kings have the Royal Host, which is, I guess it's got chariots as in core, so that's kind of a cavalry focus or chariot focus there. Dwarves, they've got the Scout Gyros that you can take in the Expeditionary Force. You've got the Knights of Darkness for Warriors of Chaos. Empire have got a Knights detachment. We expect a Knight detachment. So I think High Elves, Knight detachment, Dragon Princes. Maybe we'll see Imric come back as well. That's not my prediction. That's just an additional, but I'd like to see that. Speaking of characters coming back in arcane journals, the way that we're seeing it is there's either 2, so one linked to each arcane, army of infamy, or sometimes there's a 3rd as well, which kind of is just a little bit more open and can go anywhere it wants to. I think, in terms of the High Elf arcane journal, I don't know who is coming, but my prediction number 10, there will not be a Teclis and Tyrion return. I don't think they're coming back yet. I wouldn't be surprised to see them come back, but I don't believe it makes sense in terms of lore for this time to see them come back. And honestly, I'd be surprised to see them come back without each other. I don't think there's slots for both of them in this arcane journal. So I'm going to say no Teclis, no Tyrion. That is prediction number 10. Prediction number 11. Moving on from High Elves, I think that we're expecting to see Beastmen as the next arcane journal. That's a little bit of an easy one. I think that's too easy to give as a prediction. So I'm going to say Beastmen are going to come specifically in May. I don't get any points unless they come in May. If they come earlier, come later, no good. So when I come back and review this next year, it has to be specifically a May release for Beastmen. Speaking of Beastmen, prediction number 12 is that we will see 2 new beasties for Beastmen, and one of them is going to be cross-compatible with Warriors of Chaos. Why do I say that? Well, again, if you look back at the arcane journals, pretty much everyone who can, or it makes sense to, gets some sort of large creature. So we've got Orcs and Goblins, got the Troll Hag. Warriors of Chaos got 3. They got the Giant Spawn, they got Golrock, and they got the Warpfire Dragon. In Empire, it doesn't really make sense to have monsters, but they've got the big, War Wagon, which is kind of the analogy for a large ridden monster. It's just a massive chariot. I think, especially because Beastmen are so large monster focused, we'll see 2 of them. And as the spice, like I say, only one of them is going to be cross-compatible with Warriors of Chaos, which is probably for the best because they're already good enough without new toys. Prediction number 13. Unlucky for some, so I put one here that I'm very not confident on. Again, Beastmen, I'm talking about how every army has got some sort of cavalry or chariot-based attachment. So I'm expecting to see a centaur/chariot-focused attachment. You'll probably be able to take less monsters, so maybe no Razor Gore, despite them being basically an incredible chariot. You probably won't be able to take monsters, or maybe you'll take reduced monsters, but we'll see bonuses for taking centaurs and chariots. That's my guess for the second arcane Army of Infamy. Tying into that, number 14, I think we're going to see some way to make drunken, the rule that centaurs have, not a problem. And I think the way they'll do it, if we look at the Empire Arcane Journal, is it'll probably be a character. So what's he called? Hans von Lowenhack makes it so that if you've got mercenaries, you don't have to roll on a misbehaving mercenary table. This is obviously incredible. I think we'll see a character for centaurs that does the same thing. And I hope we do, because I love the concept of centaurs. I think their stat lines are great. They're very cheap and they hit very hard, especially the characters. It's just losing control of them because of the rules that they roll on a random drunken table is not something that I can put up with. It's a little too much for me. Number 15, for the second Army of Infantry for Beastmen, I'm expecting to see a large and in charge detachment. What's that going to look like? I think we'll see Minotaurs as a big focus, and then also large monsters. So you've got uncapped Minotaurs in core, 660 points in rare, maybe the new big beasties that I'm expecting to see, maybe you can take them in special in this detachment, or you can only take one of them in this detachment. I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of character as well, like an Ogdra's analogy, where you've got maybe a caster who, for some reason, controls or communes with the beasts better than other people can. Gives you some sort of bonuses in that respect. Number 16, moving on to the Wood Elves, which I'm expecting to be the last army that gets their Arcane Journal. I'm going to go with what I think is pretty much a layup here. Forest Spirits will be one of the armies of infamy. It just makes sense. It's got to be done, right? You've got all your woodland creatures, or woodland trees, I should say, I guess. Your dryads, your treekin, your what you call them, the big tree men as well. I think there's going to be a detachment themed specifically around those. And to make that less of a gimme, I'm going to say that I only get the points if we also see Drycha return. Drycha is the named character, the branch wraith that you might remember from past times. Tying into a Forest Spirits Army of Infamy, I think the main mechanic that's going to make them tick is some way to buff their output. The thing that they struggle with, dryads, they get 2 attacks, which is great. They're very tanky, T4 with a 6-up save and a 6-up regen as well. All of that's great, really solid, but they struggle because they don't actually have much output. They've got strength 3 attacks, and yeah, it's 2 attacks with dryads. 3 attacks at strength 4 with the treekin is pretty okay, but there's no AP on there, which really sucks. And then the tree men, obviously, only strength 5, that's not great. So my prediction is that they get plus strength and AP on the charge. Maybe strength and AP of +1. Does that fit in terms of trees? I think of the Forest Spirits being kind of slower. But if you look at Royal Host, they got a bonus to strength on the charge. So you know what? I'm just going to call it plus strength and AP on the charge for the Forest Spirits detachment, and that will make them a lot more appealing to want to get into combat. Prediction number 18. For the second Army of Infamy, I am expecting to see the Wild Hunt. It makes sense, it's flavorful, it's kind of the opposite of what you'd see from a Forest Spirit detachment. I think there's going to be rules, or there's going to be a lot of focus on Wild Riders, for example. I'd expect to see Orion rejoining the Wood Elves. Obviously a timeless spirit, so it makes sense in terms of the timing of when things are. Yeah, I think we'll see a Wild Hunt. I wouldn't be surprised to see if there were limited or no Forest Spirits in there, so you can't take your Dryads and your Treekin, and maybe limited shooting as well. I'm not as confident on that one, but I think it's going to be a lot of fairly naked elves wanting to get into melee and hit you really hard. And there's probably going to be a good amount of cavalry in that detachment as well. Prediction number 19, and I'm going to be honest, the next two are wish listing because I'm a huge Wood Elf fan and I'd like to see these things come back. But prediction 19 is that Nestra and Arahan, the Twilight Sisters who ride on the back of a big dragon, will come back. Realistically as a made to order, but my prediction is that we get them as the third returning character for Wood Elves. I'd love to see them. They're fantastic. Something about having 2 riders on the back of a dragon, just thematically, feels very cool. I was having a look at their rules from, I think it was 8th edition. I don't expect them to come back in this way, but the bows they had were wild. One of them had a strength 5 bow that does d6 damage. The other has a strength 1 bow that does 2d6 damage. I don't think they should come back in that sort of specific way, but I would love to see them come back with new rules, the old model, which is great. Speaking of wishlisting, prediction number 20, I'd love to see them bring back the Wood Elf Kindreds. High Elves obviously have their equivalent. Wood Elves used to have them. I don't know about 8th edition. I didn't play 8th edition, but if you go back to 6th, you had like the Glamour Weave Kindred, the Scout Kindred, the War Dancer Kindred, and that gave them upgrades, special rules, made them tie into the units that they could, the other elf units that you've got. I think that'd just be super cool. I'd love to see it. Bring back the Kindreds. Prediction number 20. We've reached the end of the content we know about, but prediction 21, I think we're going to see more arcane journals. It just makes sense to me. It's a great little package where they can bring out new rules for armies, bring out new models to tie in with them. It's not a full release commitment, and it really ties in with the way that they've got the books. I'm not expecting them to do full army books for Old World, at least in the first edition. So my prediction is that we're going to see more arcane journals. I don't know the format of them, though. Maybe we'll just see them go back round, so we'll see Bretonnian first, and then Tomb Kings get another one. Or maybe, for example, we'll see what we've seen in other games where we've got mini campaign books. Same sort of length, same amount of content, but you've got the lore split between, two warring factions. You've got a special character from, let's say, Bretonnia, who's fighting against a special character from Tomb Kings, and they've each got their own army of infamy. That'd be a great way to bring more rules into the game while not having to make people wait for a full year and a half to get more rules, the way that they have, the sort of initial release schedule. I don't know. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I think there will be more rules and more content coming before we get to the end of the edition. To take a quick step back from the content-focused milestones, I think I'm going to reach 7,000 subs by the end of 2025. I've been tracking at about 1,000 subs every 3 months, which has taken me to, by the time you're seeing this, hopefully I'll have ticked that over to 3,000. So my prediction is that I can get up to 7,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. Why am I putting this in here? So I've got public shaming if I don't get there. Having it in the public eye means that I'll know that I have to work harder if it doesn't look like I'm going to achieve my goals. It's a little bit of a motivation for me. Number 23, speaking of motivation, I think, and I'm going to make the prediction here, England is going to win the first WTC, the World Team Championships. Why do I think that? Well, we are pretty incredibly organised, actually. We've got a great setup. We've got a chair. We've got a vice chair. Currently, there is voting going on for who is going to be the team captain. Everything's going to be run through all three players, all three members of management. We've got a Discord, we've got community engagement. I think we're really well set up to do this professionally, to make sure it's not an old boys club, just to pick the best 8 players to go, have a good culture for growth, and I'm really excited to see how we do. So, putting a stamp on it, England are going to win the first WTC. I'm hoping to be there as well, but I'm going to have to really work for it. We're coming to the end, and so for the last 2, I'm going to make some spicy predictions, and my first spicy prediction for number 24 is that we're going to see a new faction added to the game, and that faction is going to be Cathay. I expect to see them either by the end of 2025, or if the schedule doesn't line up, we'll know about them. We'll have had an official sort of like roadmap or announcement or something, and we'll get them in sort of the Q1 of 2026. That's what I'm expecting. So, prediction 24, Cathay in the Old World, coming to you. Finally, I am expecting for us to see the next edition of Old World come much faster than people might expect. We've heard that the scope of the project has changed. As I understand it, there are now more resources being put into the game, more people working on the project, but there is a lag on that. You can't just say, they're a massive company, they've got to schedule all their releases. They can't just say, this is doing really well, let's get some more product out next week. It's a little bit bigger than that. So my expectation is, instead of this being on a 3-year life cycle, Old World First Edition, we're going to only last for 2 years, and we're going to go straight into a 2.0. I'm not going to make predictions about what we see in there. I'd love to see the legacy factions come back. I don't know if they will. I think from what I understand, that's more of an internal politics thing than in terms of a man-hours thing. So I don't know about the legacy factions, but I'm expecting that we will hear about it, and it's going to be coming in Q2 of 2026. Why do I say Q2? Well, the way that Games Workshop works, obviously they're trying to bring profit for the shareholders. They're trying to have growth year on year. They've been reporting growth year on year. That's not something that they want to stop. How is this going to work? Well, the last 2 years have been very easy for them. 2 years ago, they had 40k release. This year just gone, they had Age of Sigmar release. When you've got a new edition of a game, you get a big cash injection. Lots of people buy it. Lots of people are talking about it. You know, there's more eyes on your product. It's when you've got the most players at the start of an edition or like 3 months into the edition. This is all well and good, but what big cash injection are they going to get this year? On a 3-year life cycle, the big games aren't being released. So I think it might be Horus Heresy 3.0, or maybe one of the other side games, maybe Blood Bowl or something like that. That's not going to drive profits the way that we see for, Old World and Age of Sigmar. Sorry, Age of Sigmar and 40k, getting ahead of myself. So I think we're going to see 2 releases. I think we'll see, and I'd have to double check my dates, but I think we're due to have a Horus Heresy release. I also think we're going to have an Old World release. I think we're going to have both of those this year, coming 2025, and that's going to be the thing that takes them into the staying in the green profit margins. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. If you've reached this point and you haven't already, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscription if you haven't done those things. It just helps me get seen by more people, boost me up in the algorithm, all of the stuff that the YouTubers do like to say. If you would like to support me in my goal to become a full-time YouTuber, I would absolutely appreciate that. You can become a member below. There are various perks to those, name at the end of the videos, all that good stuff, but it also unlocks some VIP areas in Discord if you become a Longbeard or Grail Knight tier supporter. Those VIP sections are the only parts that are locked away in Discord. You don't have to be a member to join the Discord. I'd recommend that you should. We've got about 450, 500 people on there. It's a great place for discussion, a lot of fun. I do try and chime in as much as possible. And it's also where the Fix My List show lists are put. And also if you are one of the Grail Knight or Longbeard tier supporters, where you participate in choosing which list I play in the monthly Pick My List series.